All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another Campus Preview Days session. This one is going to be terrific because we have our terrific current interns joining us today. They're very, very busy, and we're very grateful for their time. And because our time with them is limited, I'm going to spend as little of our session today talking as possible. I'm actually going to hand it right over to them. They're going to introduce themselves, and then this time is for your questions. So without further ado, our current interns.
Hello, I guess I can start. My name is Ella Horbital. I am currently interning as a Spanish and English, double endorsement area, and then I'm also getting endorsed in ESL and IB education.
And I am Ed Mays. My two endorsements are English and German, and I'm currently doing my student teaching at Thurston High School in the South Redford district, which is on the west side of the Metro Detroit area.
Hello, I'm Keenan Mullaney. My endorsements are biology and chemistry. I'm also getting IB certified, and I'm at Washtenaw International High School in Ypsilanti.
And hi, my name is Madeline. I am a single endorsement, just biology. And right now I am interning at Huron High School here in Ann Arbor.
It's great to meet all of you and to see everyone's face here. We're excited to answer any questions that you have about the program. And we promise to provide candid answers and honesty throughout this session today. So let us hear your questions, and I guess we'll just kind of take turns answering them, right? Right, folks?
It works,
Right.
Yeah. If you want to direct it towards somebody who's in a similar endorsement or something, that works too. But
Yep.
But yeah, we're just here to answer some questions.
So sorry. I actually have a question. I was wondering if you could actually, Ella, I think that you said you were Spanish endorsement actually. And just in general for all of y'all, during your first, like your summer classes and everything like that, do you still take classes that are geared towards your endorsement area, like specifically geared towards your endorsement area? Because that's the whole thing that I'm worried about. Like if I'm not taking Spanish classes, how am I going to speak Spanish with anyone but my family? So it's just kind of like, how should I do that? But I just wondering if you all could speak upon that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's an excellent question. So in my specific scenario, when I was in my undergrad, because I went right from undergrad to grad school. So for English, because I have a bachelor's in English, all my credits were wiped. I didn't have to take any additional endorsement classes. For Spanish, I did have to take X amount of additional classes that I was able to finish during undergrad. But if you don't necessarily finish those, you do have to take additional classes, and it's up to you when you want to take those. I would definitely suggest taking them in the summer because you're going to be very busy in the fall and winter. If you just want to keep speaking Spanish, you don't necessarily need to take the classes, but you want to stay up to date and want to keep practicing. I feel like there are a lot of different like either volunteer programs you could do through U of M where you could practice speaking Spanish, or just watching like telenovelas or watching TV or whatever, which is not as helpful. But yeah, I would say if you want to take classes beforehand, that summer term is when to do it.
Yeah, and I can perhaps add something to that too, because I also have a world language endorsement, and I was in a position where I had completed the required coursework prior to beginning the MAC program. And so I think in the summertime, there won't be any Spanish courses that you are required to take if you've completed the requirements beforehand. In that case, a good option to keep your language skills fresh, there are members of the world language department in the School of Ed who can connect you with former teachers and current teachers who will meet with you for conversational practice sessions on a weekly or even a bi-weekly basis, if that is something that you would find helpful. I did that partially to prep for my oral proficiency indicator exam. And it was, fairly expensive because they're excellent speakers in their language, and so they charge for it. But if that is an available thing for you, available resource for you if you just want some speaking practice to stay fresh.
And then I mean, it's not world language, but I took 7 years between graduating from college and joining the SecMAC program. And so I took one class in chemistry to kind of catch myself up on that, but I did have all of my endorsements covered. And I don't know if I would recommend taking a class in that summer because the program, summer is definitely the best time to take it if you have to take a class. But it's not like you're doing nothing. You're still taking master's courses. It's still pretty busy. But I took I studied for the MTTCs so that I could pass them in both of my content areas in the summer and get that out of the way. So I would recommend that. And I was really glad to take that chemistry class as kind of a lead into my chemistry MTTC. So.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with Keenan. If you don't have to take additional classes, I definitely wouldn't. I would save your money just because this program is such a financial commitment. If you guys don't already know that. Same with Keenan. I took a couple of years off, so I was a little bit nervous going into my first placement, just that I wouldn't, remember some of the biology that I was teaching. I will say that if you are able to get your hands on an AP textbook for whatever you're going to teach, that I would do that. And that's also a really great way to study for your MTTC. That's I'm working my way through the AP Bio book right now in preparation to take my MTTC. I'm a little behind on that one, but
I have a question kind of in that same vein. Obviously, it is a big financial commitment. I was wondering if any of you have worked at all through the program. I've read through the materials that's discouraged pretty strongly, but I just wanted to know what your experience was.
Yeah, I could take that. I worked about 3/4 time in the summer. I would not recommend doing that. I would say that you could get away part-time, less than part-time, just kind of get some extra money. Because I put myself behind on a lot of assignments because I was working 30 hours a week. So I'd recommend if your financial situation lets you take that summer off or lets you take that part-time, you could probably do that. But I think it's okay. I got through it. It was a lot of work, but I would recommend not doing that if you can due to your financial constraints. But it is possible. I know some other people in the program who continue to work full time through that summer. I don't think anybody continued to work full time in the fall because fall really picked up everything with student teaching and master's courses. And now in the spring and the winter, it's been 2 jobs worth of work to keep up with everything. But that summer, maybe after that, I would say no.
I think a lot of it depends too on the format of this program. I think if you were completely in person and you maybe had like an hour to 2 hour commute from your placement and back, I think that would get really challenging. I know there's a girl in the world language cohort and she's been working weekends, I think 17 hours a week. So she's been able to find time to do it still through the semester. But it depends, I think, on your cohort because certain cohorts have more or less work depending on which semester you're in. And they also, I would say it depends on if we're in person, virtual, hybrid, because I think there will be some flexibility there too.
yeah, it also is depending on too, that first question, going back to that, if you are having to take additional classes outside of your SecMAC requirements, I would say that it's not possible. In my honest opinion, for you to stay on top of everything in the fall, it wouldn't have been possible. I mean, we were in our placement for a part of the day, and then we were basically like, especially for science, like was it 2 days of the week, Keenan, that we were like 7:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. pretty much on and off of Zoom. I know that world language has had a similar like time setup. I don't know about Ed. I don't know for you guys what that was like. I would say now that I have picked up like 2 days a week babysitting, something like that, where you have the flexibility to, if you have too much work, if you can say, can't do it this week, whatever. Or if you do find a job, I would say to try to find something that is education related, whether that be, babysitting and tutoring or whatever you can find, if that's possible. I know that there are a lot of opportunities for that in this area.
Yeah, well said, everyone. I don't have anything to add to that.
Thank you.
I have a question as far as the people that are seeking the IB certification. Can you just kind of talk about maybe how that's helped you or how you can see that going to help you as far as teaching goes? Because we had that presentation yesterday and I really enjoyed it and I'm really considering pursuing it.
I think it makes you much more hireable. I think not only for teaching in an IB school, but there are also a lot of principals affiliated with IB teaching that I think can be transferable in different areas that they like to see in teachers. And given, I think it's going to look slightly different next year. I think it's an actual class next year as opposed to like an online module at your own pace. But for me, it was not that much work. I think it's like $400 to put on your certification. But besides that, I think that's like pretty low cost and not that much work. So to me, it was very worth it. Granted, don't know what it's going to look like next year. It might look slightly different, but I think it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, and I would also echo that in the science. And I don't know what's your name, Am Carnegie. I'm not sure.
Andrew, yeah.
Andrew, what would your endorsements be?
History, social studies.
History. Okay.
Civics.
Well, okay. I wanted to talk specifically towards science, but I got placed in IB school on top of getting my IB certification. And I've only had a couple interviews so far, and I think it's helped tremendously, particularly in science, because we're moving towards standards-based grading in a lot of scientific courses. And IB has been doing standards-based grading, basically standards-based grading for 20 odd years now. And so there's kind of a philosophy of, oh, well, this is what we're moving towards. So you having experience, and this is great. So sorry that I can't speak towards history, but I think it's helped a lot already when trying to find a job. And also I like the philosophy. So I think it's a worthwhile thing to learn, even if you don't end up in an IB school.
I enjoyed my philosophy classes as an undergrad. So, that being said, it seems very, interesting to me. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I was just curious if you guys, I know that this year has been, different than it might run next year, but just what your experience has been with your placements in turn, have you been in the same school the whole year, or has that changed, middle versus high school? Just curious about that in general.
Yeah. So I can speak a little bit to placement scenarios. And yeah, like you said, take it with a bit of a grain of salt, because obviously the schools that we've been working with have been trying to adapt and find ways to thrive under the current circumstances. And so that might have, affected the stability of some people's placement setups this year. I myself have been in the same spot the whole year. And I have really loved working with my mentor and working in the district where I am. It is worth noting that some endorsements, you will automatically be switching to multiple placements just as a stipulation of the program. So that's something to keep in mind. And that's actually, I think, an advantage for some endorsements. I know that social studies was doing that, where they would spend a couple months in one placement. And I think some people have now been in 3 different clinical placements. And then now they're finishing up in their last one, which will be the longest of the 3 placements. So that, depending on your endorsement, you may be in that situation. And then there are other people who, over the course of, they decided that it wasn't the best fit, and that they wanted to go to a different school and get their clinical, I don't know, do we say clinical? Why am I saying that? Get their professional experience in a different district. And so to do that, the program has been quite accommodating, I think, to a lot of the people in my endorsement area who I've spoken with about this, have gotten a lot of support from the the administrators of our program, and they have usually been set up with a placement fairly quickly that was a lot more satisfying to them. So just know that if you're kind of nervous about, will I like my placement? Is it going to be the right fit for me? It's not like you're stuck in one place. There is opportunities to find a spot that's going to be the right fit for you, and that's going to give you the support and the mentorship that you're looking for.
Yeah, that actually happened to me. So I started the first part of the year at Ann Arbor Pioneer. And just, I mean, it just wasn't going to be a fantastic learning environment for me. Nothing wrong with that. I tried to make it work. I made it work for that fall semester. And was pretty nervous about, going to my field instructor and, asking for a new placement. But I shouldn't have been scared, because honestly, she was great and the program directors were great. And Kevin worked really hard to find me a new placement. And I'm really happy that I spoke up instead of just kind of suffering in silence for that second half of the year, because you spend a lot of time with your mentor teacher. And if you guys are not, on the same page, it's not going to be fun for you. And you're not going to want to go. I mean, it's just not a great way to start your teaching career. If this is something that I was so excited to do, and then, I got into my placement and started kind of taking over, and it just wasn't for me. And my new mentor teacher is awesome. We get along really well. We, share a lot of the same ideas about students and teaching, and just advocate for yourself and speak up. If the placement's not for you, it's not for you. So
I think too, this year has been very unique in that it's been a year of shuffling. So I think at least at one point or another during this year, our formats of our placements have changed from either completely virtual to hybrid to all in person to back to virtual. So I think hopefully at least by next year, there will be a greater plan and a greater sense of stability in all of your placements. At least in Ann Arbor, I think we were all virtual. I'm at Pioneer, completely virtual, and we had a good system. We were using slides across the district so that there was kind of a universal design for learning, and students were all getting the same material from all of their teachers. Now we're going to hybrid by the end of April, so I think there's kind of a sense of instability and kind of a shift happening, but hopefully by September, with vaccines, there will be a greater, more stable placement that you'll be getting into, which will be good.
Yeah, and I just echo exactly what they said. Some people have multiple placements as part of the program. Some people have had multiple placements because, in Maddie's case, I've been with the same person since August. We actually started kind of before, because I was in IB school. We started in, the second to last week of August. So I've been in the same classroom this whole time. I've just taken over all the classes now. It's been great working relationship. I see eye to eye with my mentor teacher. And so, yeah, I mean, it works out sometimes great. I've learned some awesome things, and yeah, just echoing what everybody else has said.
And just to say one thing that hasn't been said yet too, when they are setting up your placement, you do have an interview and you make a connection with the mentor teacher before both of you agree to the arrangement. So it's important to take that conversation seriously and have some good questions to ask your prospective mentor about the school environment and about their teaching style, so that you can potentially avoid a scenario where you're not satisfied, before you get into that. So just know that you do have the choice before you begin your placement to say whether or not, you're liking the vibes, you know what I mean? So just know that opportunity exists.
I have another question on placements. I don't know how much you might be able to speak to this, depending on like what your virtual versus in format has been like, and I know that's varied significantly by district and school. So I currently live in Detroit rather than Ann Arbor, and I'm planning on staying here. And I formerly worked in DPSCD and plan to go back to DPSCD after the program. And I'm wondering, like, did any of you kind of work out? If you talked about your placements at the beginning, I came in a little bit late, so my apologies. But like, if you were either in like the Detroit area or like anywhere kind of farther out from Ann Arbor, what that experience might have been like, from anything from like commuting, especially on days when you were both like at the school and then had to come back for classes, or anything, just kind of like what that experience was like, in any other respects that might seem relevant.
All I can speak to that is that I actually lived up near Lansing, and when we were trying to figure out, they give you a questionnaire of like, how far out do you live, like what kind of general area. There's some general questions on that, and we kind of figured out that it would be best for me if I had a placement very close to Ann Arbor, because I would be commuting to classes in Ann Arbor. It would be nice to work right near Ann Arbor so that I wouldn't be driving to Redford. So that's why one of the reasons I ended up in Ypsilanti right there. But then I mean, unfortunately, all of our classes have been virtual through the University of Michigan. We tried at the beginning of fall to have some in-person classes for a couple weeks, and that worked out okay, but we ended up kind of going all virtual on that. And then my placement, we are going in person on Monday. We're going to hybrid on Monday. So we've been in virtual. So I've been in the Lansing area in my apartment for most of the program. But I will say that there was questionnaires, and they did work with me about what kind of general area I'd like to be placed in. And I think there's also a Detroit Public Schools connection. So if you make that choice, you'd like to also be a student teacher in Detroit Public Schools, I think that they would try to push you in that direction. So
Yeah, I think that your situation is very well suited to the program. Actually, I commute from Ann Arbor to the Detroit area for my student teaching. I said earlier that I was at Thurston High School, which is in Redford Charter Township, so just on the west side of the greater Detroit area. And we've been in a hybrid mode for like I think about a month now. And so in that time, I've been commuting to the school every day from the Ann Arbor area. But it's just the kind of same deal as if you were doing the opposite commute, right? Just driving into Ann Arbor for classes, about a half-hour drive. And there's enough time built in between when you're supposed to be at your school and when you're supposed to be in class that a 30-minute commute is manageable to balance that. So as long as your commute isn't really more than half an hour from Ann Arbor, I don't imagine that would be a problem for you. And this is presuming that we have in-person classes here in Ann Arbor in the fall. I don't think it would be a big deal if you were teaching near where you live in Detroit, to then you would have time, in other words, to get to Ann Arbor for classes in the afternoon and then get home.
I also think I spoke with, I'm not sure what your prospective content area is, but I spoke with my cohort leader for world languages, and she was like, if you have anybody that you want to work with or any teachers that you're familiar with that you would like, please let me know their names so that I can potentially connect you. So if you do have people you're working with through DPS that you might want to work with, I think it would be worthwhile to reach out to your cohort leader and be like, oh, I've worked with them before, blah, 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 or whatever.
Yeah, Keenan, does Johanna live in Midland? Is that where she's at? Or Saginaw? Somewhere.
Oh yeah, she works at Saginaw, and they were
Mhm.
able to get her placement in her school because she still works part-time, almost full-time, I want to say, as a teacher in Saginaw, and then she's also student teaching on top of that.
Yeah.
Johanna's an insane person who is
She really
amazing.
is. Really
So
is. We should have had her
let's
here
not-
today.
Exactly. Let's not copy her though. Let's say that seems crazy to us, but she is somehow able to hold it down and keep it together.
Yeah.
So
Well,
Yeah.
it's also worth noting, though, that situation would likely not be possible had the classes not been virtual, right? She wouldn't be
Correct.
the student teacher in Saginaw.
Correct.
The classes were in person.
I'm not sure because she they've been in person. They've
Well,
been
no, 'cause
hybrid for a
Keenan,
while.
and if she would have had to come here for class, like if this were a normal
Yeah.
year, that it wouldn't have been possible. But they were able to.
Yeah.
I guess moral of the story: if you ask, it doesn't hurt to ask.
Yeah,
They
and
they
also
might be
they
able
will.
to accommodate you.
Yeah, they will work with you. So yeah.
Yeah.
Good point, Maddie.
So that's interesting. Like if you have existing like connections to teachers or administrators in schools, you could potentially use that as a basis for establishing your placement with the program.
Yeah, I would definitely suggest that you should mention it. I know, at least because I'm from Ann Arbor, I went to high school in Ann Arbor. The one rule is I was not allowed to teach where I went to high school. So I couldn't mentor with like one of my old teachers, which I wanted to, but I couldn't. So as long as you didn't attend that school and had those teachers, but you work there or whatever, I think that's kosher. I don't know. At least it was for world languages. It might depend on content.
Yeah, it's worth asking, but don't
Yeah.
depend on it.
That's
Yeah,
good advice.
I wouldn't bank on like, oh, I'm doing this program because I'm expecting to work with this teacher in this school. I don't think that any guarantees can be made.
I have a question for those of you in science. I'm doing a chemistry endorsement, and I'm just curious what the SecMAC curriculum and coursework is like, if you could speak to that.
Sure, I can speak to that because I did one of my endorsements is chemistry. So I had to take one class to before I started this program to kind of get done with all the prerequisites because I didn't want to be taking them at the same time. And I'm glad I did that. And then I took the MTTCs in the summer so I could study for that kind of when I had a little bit more free time. The curriculum for the SecMAC program is much more about teaching science. It's not so much about learning science yourself. So I wouldn't rely on, if you wanted to keep your science practice up, I wouldn't rely on the coursework because, you know, we've got like scientific literacy classes where we're learning how to teach scientific literacy to high school students. You know, we've got a lot of like EEE framework classes where we are pushed out into our individual disciplines. So, you know, science and world language and stuff like that. But it seems that we're just more learning strategies within our own content. So it's not like we are learning how to specifically teach, you know, predicting chemical reactions. You know, it's more we're learning the framework around being able to teach that. I don't know if this is exactly what you wanted me to talk to, but you know, it's not that you'll be learning any more chemistry in the program. You're learning how to teach it.
Yeah, I was just asking like about the types of frameworks. I've taken a couple science methods classes, but I'm just curious, like, does Michigan use like NGSS framework or something similar?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. NGSS is kind of the main framework. We have to when we put lesson plans into our field instructor, at least I have to put them into NGSS framework, which is frustrating because IB framework is universal backwards design with a lot of 5E plus A stuff involved. So it's kind of, which is very similar ideologies, but it's kind of presented in different ways. But it's a lot of, in science specifically, it's NGSS is the field instructor.
Yeah, I think what I have found is, since I'm at an IB school, I'm not pursuing the IB certification, but since I've gotten into like planning my own lessons and all of that, I still will use the like template that we were given in our methods class and use NGSS, and then kind of, you know, like in IB, work backwards and do all of that. So I think that was kind of scary at first because NGSS was not something that I had seen before. I had not taken an education class before this program. But it was overwhelming at first, but then learning, you know, all of these steps that are going into planning your lessons and learning about NGSS, it just got easier and easier. And then getting into your placement, like you start those classes in the fall, more specific towards teaching science. And then by the time, you know, right now in the spring, it's just kind of like second nature, like plug and chug from NGSS into that outline that you're able to produce for your placement. And then that's where you're getting more into those conversations with your mentor teacher about, like Keenan was saying, teaching how to balance a chemical equation or whatever.
Thank you.
I have a question. So one of my endorsement areas will be German. So I'm just kind of curious about how like the world language work. Like I know everyone's together. So if you could just give me an idea of like how it's set up.
It's confusing. So the world language faculty, like the lead is, she speaks French. She's American, but her language speak most or all of a language. So we have one that is German, one or two Spanish, and then one or two French. There are a lot that speak parts of each. We also have a woman in our cohort right now who does Latin. So there are a lot of like, oral proficiency standards that she doesn't have to meet at all because you don't speak Latin, it's a dead language. So it's definitely very strange. My field instructor doesn't speak Spanish, she speaks French. So I have to make my lessons comprehensible enough, and I'm teaching 3AC and 5AP. So they're advanced classes, but they have to be comprehensible enough that someone with little to no Spanish can still understand what I'm teaching and understand what I'm communicating, which is, if you think about it, relative to what your students may be feeling if they are not native or fluent in the language. So it's definitely weird. Be prepared for a lot of translating. We have to do all of our lesson plans in our target language and then also in English. What you would do in a high school anyway, you would have to translate for your administrators or other teachers who might want to teach the lessons. Yes, it's a lot. We also do a unit plan in the fall semester. It's about 250 pages long, so just be prepared for like a lot of writing and a lot of thinking in language, also thinking in English. Yeah, just get prepared for a lot, but it's very worthwhile and it's very fun.
Hey, Anna, would your world language endorsement be your primary or your additional?
My additional.
Oh, okay. So,
And disregard everything you said.
a little different because I did my world language as my additional endorsement, and my experience I think was quite different from Ella's. It was because you already have a lot on your plate for your primary endorsement, which will be what? Just out of curiosity.
Math.
Okay, all right. So you'll be doing an intensive methods course for math. So you will have an additional methods course for world language, but you will not be required to produce as much material as Ella was required to, as Spanish being her primary endorsement. So you will, what I did was my final sort of capstone project for the German endorsement was like a multi-day teach. So it was like a 3-day lesson plan where I did what Ella did. I had to write it all out and translate it all, from the language of instruction to English. But it wasn't a full unit plan, and I didn't have to do as many other endorsement going on. So a little bit important to copy.
Thank you.
Ella, wow, snaps for you guys, because that's a lot of 250 pages.
Yeah, no, this semester's been much easier. Everyone's like, oh, it's so much work. I'm like, no, fall was much worse.
Oh, spring
Yeah.
is much worse for science, at least.
Yeah, I believe it. I'm cruising.
I feel like there is a little bit more work this semester, Keenan, but I don't know if it's just that I've gotten used to it, and I mean, I can confidently say that at least for the science program, we're going to be teachers. We're all people that are not used to getting something done the day before a deadline. But that's something that you kind of have to get comfortable with and not feel like, it's the end of the world that your assignment is due at midnight and it's 10:30 and you're still working on it. That maybe that's why I feel like this semester I can breathe a little bit more. I don't know. Does anybody else feel
I
like
definitely feel way more stressed out and busy this semester. I think, yeah, it's just
okay,
you.
just me.
I'd say that the coursework at Michigan, probably the workload has actually gone down since the fall. But maybe it's just my placement, and part of it is that they are kind of relying on me to come up with new lessons because we are still virtual and they've never done that before. And so it's not that that I can take previous ideas. They'll give me materials, but there's huge holes in it because it's more like in-class work as opposed to like online work. So I feel like I've been putting a lot more work into lesson planning this semester because I've took over 3 preps and 150 students and across 6th, 7th, and 10th grade. So it's just very different as well. But I'm still handling it, and the big thing too is the professors at Michigan have been great. I was literally the day before a unit plan was due, I was like, I'm not going to get this done. It's not going to happen. And I contacted my field instructor and I told him I'm not going to be able to get this done by when it's due. And he said, okay, get it done by, maybe can you get it done by Wednesday, and I was like, yeah, that 2 days I'll be able to get it done. And he didn't take points off or anything. He was we even actually phone, and he was just like, hey man, there's a pandemic going on. Like, just take a breath. It's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. So that's been awesome.
And an important point of clarification, because I don't think we've defined who we're talking about when we say field instructor yet. Your field instructor is, I think in many cases, a former teacher, classroom teacher, who now is an employee of the university and who is sort of there as a support for you, specifically when it comes to things regarding your placement and your student teaching. So there's someone you meet with on a weekly basis in a seminar class in the fall and through the spring, who it is a course, but it's primarily there for reflecting on the student teaching experience and providing you with resources and more guidance as you are taking on more responsibility in your student teaching role. So field instructors they're great resources and great people to work with, and a big part of the program. And for many of us, they also serve as writers of letters of recommendation or references as we begin our job hunt, because they are the ones who will observe you in your student teaching role and give you feedback and really just get a sense for your teaching style and your capabilities in a very in-depth way. So that's an important aspect of the program to know about.
Ella and Ed, I am curious to know this. So my placement is a little different than Keenan's in the sense of lesson planning. So for the most part, since we all have, those district lessons, what I do is I just take that district lesson and I modify it to how I would teach it. But my mentor teacher, just because all of Ann Arbor Public Schools is teaching the same thing on the same day right now for all biology classes, she's not super comfortable with me just taking the lesson and doing whatever I want with it. Like I have to run all of these changes by her, just because the assessment was not necessarily made by her. So that's where I think my workload is lessened from Keenan's a little bit in that respect. So where are you guys at with that?
I feel like my workload is decent just because my teacher has 2 preps total. She teaches 4 3AC classes and 1 5 AP. So I only ever need to make 4 lesson plans a week because of the block schedule. We are using the same template of lesson plans, and that we have like the learning objectives and the can-do statements. Like we have that same template, but the actual content is more original and dependent from teacher to teacher. There is a lot of collaboration as well between the district. So different world language teachers from Skyline or Pioneer Huron are all collaborating. But yeah, I think the content is more original, but the format itself is universal.
Yeah, and I'm happy to speak on this as well, but I just want to make sure that we have 15 minutes left here. So let's get if there are any other questions from from all of you, we'd love to take some more. Just want to make sure no one feels like they didn't get a chance to ask their question.
I do have a question. I apologize, my video is not on. I'm at work, but I do have a question about the MTTC exam. It's my understanding that you can just like take it, each person takes it when they're able. So I just want to know what the studying process is like, or even the exam process for some of you that have taken it before. And I guess in short,
Real quick, Morgan, what's your area?
English.
Cool.
Oh, well, then I can talk to you about that. Oh, and Ella, you can too. You took the, you want to take it first?
Sure. Spanish or English MTTC. I don't know. I'm not a good teacher, not a good student, but I don't really study for things generally. I did speak with an academic advisor prior to taking it, and she said the best way you're insured for success is if you did well in those classes in your undergrad. So she said if you felt confident in your English classes as an undergrad, if you felt confident in your Spanish classes, don't bother studying. If you want the extra insurance, go for it. 60% to pass. I figured I could get at least a 60%. So that's what I did. Wouldn't suggest it necessarily, but if you felt good about your level in undergrad, then I would say go for it.
Yeah, I think English MTTC. I think perhaps some of the knowledge is maybe a little bit more specific and concrete. But it doesn't sound like you're going to have to worry about that if you're doing English. So yes, I did not study a ton for the English one either. I looked at a study guide that I found that was available from the University of Michigan library system. And I looked at that for the week leading up to it, spent about an hour each day reading through that study guide. And it went just fine. So do not stress about that too much. Try to get it done as early as you can. The earlier you get it done, the happier you will be that you did that.
Yeah, and I'll just talk. Oh, go ahead, Maddie.
No. I was just going to say for sure get it done because I'm someone who has put it off and I highly regret that.
Mm-hmm.
The more confident you are in your content knowledge going into your placement, the happier you're going to be. And I would say if you're worried about it, like I looked on Reddit and just looked through a couple of threads to see what other people did. And I'm going to tell you that most of the people said the same thing Ella and Ed just did. Like they said, sat at a table for 3 days and studied nonstop and then went and took it. If that's not the type of person that you are, the type of person that I am is I'm going to spread out my studying over the next 3 or 4 weeks and then I'm going to take it. But that's just personal preference. I think there's really no, like, this is the way you got to do it to pass. It just is, you figure it out for yourself, which I know is not a.
I took the chemistry and the biology at the end of August. I'm so glad I did that because I just stopped working. So I was able to put a week in, take the biology, put a week in, take the chemistry. I did, because I haven't been in school for 7 years, I got a Momentix study guide, which I liked just because it came with 2 practice exams each. And so I was able to take those and kind of quell my nerves of like, I'm getting over 60% on this. I'm going to pass. I think I'm going to pass. Frustratingly, they don't tell you how well you did because I think I did very well on both of them. And it just says passed. But Maddie, if you want to borrow my
awesome.
chemistry one.
No, not
yeah, I can send you the download code.
I'm not taking chemistry. So
LG.
If you go to the MTTC website, it'll show you, at least for, I know for biology, it'll show you the breakdown of like 15% of the questions are cell theory, 15% of the questions are this, like it'll tell you, so that you can figure out what to spend your studying time on.
And I will say, if you're taking a world language or if you have a world language content area, regardless if it's initial or additional, there are like certain blocks of time during which you can take it. So like last July, there was like a week where I was available to take it, and then there weren't any other availabilities to like the next month. So just be on it in terms of planning to make sure that you're not going to miss a time block. I think they had to rearrange it because of COVID, obviously, and there were closures in sites. But yeah, just be on it. And then if you're in the ESL endorsement, I don't know if any of you are, you wouldn't take that until after the ESL placement. So like I haven't taken it yet. I'm not going to take it until July of 2021. So that the ESL one is the only one where you have to take it after you're done with the coursework.
Oh, but maybe we didn't speak, you just spoke a little bit, Ella, but in terms of the timeline of when you need to take your MTTCs. Well, we talked a lot about it. Let us know if you want to hear anything more about the MTTCs.
I think you covered all my questions. So thank you.
Any other questions?
I'm curious about the ESL endorsement that one of y'all just mentioned. I wanted to know like how many extra credits or classes there are and like when you
in the winter term, which is the term we're currently in, there's a 2-hour class on Fridays, same thing. And then the different thing about ESL endorsement is your placement stops early. So normally most people are in their placements until middle of May. We're done April 30th. Starting May 1st, we're doing all ESL work until the middle of July. So we have like 2 to 3 classes on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, 2 to 3 classes, Tuesdays, Thursdays from May till about the last week of June. And then that last week of June till the second week of July, you're in your ESL placement, which is like field work for, I don't know, 8 hours a day, and then you're done. And I think it's not an additional cost when you're already enrolled. So like for the winter and for the fall and winter semester, I didn't have to pay anything additional, but for that last like random 3-week fieldwork section, I think it's like $4,500. But if you qualify for FAFSA, they give you a $1,000 credit. So it's like $3,500, which is still very expensive, but that's the breakdown.
Do you have like any general words of advice, like just as we're closing out, like any general things that, you know, maybe like you wish you knew before going into the program, or like to be really helpful as you work through the program? It's like super general. So if you don't have anything, that's fine.
Yeah, I think one thing I can say that maybe you'll find encouraging. When I was sitting in your place a year ago, I think that one thing that was really exciting to hear from it's a good thing. They talked so much about the social aspect of the program and how much they enjoyed forming friendships with the other people. Okay, and how much they relied on those friendships for, you know, support when it does get stressful and there's a lot of work to be done. And unfortunately, this year we haven't been able as much to do those social things and to enjoy that aspect of being a part of this program and a part of a cohort of students. Fortunately for all of you, I think that there will be more opportunities to sort of form a tighter knit community of MAC students. And I think that that's something you will find to be a major benefit of this program because of how closely you work with and collaborate with the people, especially in your endorsement area. I think that you will find it's a great program for building a strong professional network and having a lot of people to bounce ideas off of and to hone your practice as a teacher and become more reflective and adaptive. So I think, because that's something that we're getting to do a little bit more now as it's warming up and we're getting vaccinations and I've been able to see more people and it's been really enriching the experience for me. So I think that know that that is an aspect of this program that you should look forward to. And that I think you will find to be a major benefit.
I also think even given the very virtual, I don't know, nature of this program, I was still able to connect with a lot of my peers in the world language cohort. I mean, they say that trauma, if you experience trauma together, you bond the deepest. And I think this program isn't traumatic per se, but there is a lot of like sleep deprivation and long nights. So if you're always going through it together, you're going to have a deeper bond. With that said, I would suggest working smarter and not harder. I was very much a perfectionist in high school and would stay up till 4 a.m. to get my work done. I don't think that's a conducive or sustainable practice in this program. I think if you haven't done a reading, fine. You know, like if it's not something you have to turn in, or if it's not something that's going to be beneficial for your learning, I would say, I think, I don't know, maybe that's not good advice. Makes me bad. I think knowing your limits and prioritizing, you know, sleep and health and food and eating over staying up till 4 a.m. to get something done, I would say, yeah, focus. And I know there was like, oh, self-care, and it's like, screw you, that's impossible in this field. But do work on yourself and make sure that you're healthy, because everything else will collapse if you're not.
To kind of answer the things I wish I knew at the beginning of the program type of thing. One thing that I definitely wish I knew in this meeting a year ago, for sure, was that this is a great way to get into teaching. I, took a break. I didn't go straight into this program. I worked for 7 years. I decided to completely change careers, and I think it's been a great decision for me. I've learned so much in just a year, even virtually, that I think, as worried I am about classroom on Monday without ever being in a classroom before because of the circumstances, I feel supported in that. So I'm very happy that I took this program. And then the only other thing I would say is you do have to self-advocate. About a month ago, I kind of fell behind on a lot of assignments. I fell behind on lesson plan, like at 2 a.m. before I was teaching that lesson that day. And a lot of it came down to I put a lot more on my shoulders than I needed to. And I sat down with my field instructor and my mentor teacher, and we basically didn't give me a week off or anything, but we redistributed some of the workload. I was able to get back on top of it. And now I'm, lesson planning a week ahead of time. Everything seems, the sun seems brighter, the grass seems greener. I know it's spring, but you really need to use the help that's there. Don't just put it all on your own shoulders and just think this is going to be tough. I just have to get through it. If it's tough, reach out, ask for help, ask for resources. Everyone in the program is there to help you become the best teacher you can be. So don't put it off. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I think everyone just gave really, really great advice. I think I fall somewhere between Ella and Keenan on that one, in the sense that if you don't have time to do something, don't do it. Don't force yourself, and don't cause yourself a sleepless night because you feel that you have to do something. Go to sleep. And then if you have time to do it the next day, do it the next day, and talk to your instructors, because they are very accommodating and understand. On top of grad school, like, we all have a life, some people have kids, some people have a lot of other going on. And also, I think something that would have been helpful to hear was that you don't need to know everything content related going into your placement. And if a student asks you a question and you genuinely do not know the answer, tell them that you don't know. And I had to do that, I think, twice this past week. And in my slideshow that I had yesterday, one giant mistake, and kids love when you're wrong. And I think we all had a nice laugh about it, and we moved on, and it's not the end of the world. And I think it lets them see that you're human, and you make mistakes, and that you don't know everything, and it makes you so much more approachable as a teacher and just as a human. So just remember that you don't need to know everything.
Also, the program goes by quickly. I know it seems daunting, and that like 12, 13 months is a lot of very balls to the walls kind of work, but I'm like, it's already almost the end of March and I'm feeling okay. So just know that once you're in it, it's just pretty much you're in it and then you're out. It's quick.
Yeah. And one other thing I will say too, in regards to career prospects, post program. We just had a career fair on Wednesday that we had the opportunity to meet with tons of districts from all across the state and the country, and it went very well. And I had some really positive conversations with districts who seemed to be very interested in my credentials. Maybe it felt good. So, and there was a lot of, interest in my experiences in this program, and a lot of employers, HR people, administrative districts, especially in the state of Michigan, were like, oh, I really like, we have some teachers from the MAC program, and we really like what they do and what they're about. So it's a good line on the resume. In addition to being a wonderful learning experience, I just think that it will set you up well looking for a teaching job if you do choose to do this program.
Yeah, Ed's definitely right about that. Just to add to it, a lot of even just teachers at the school that I'm placed at, see this program and they're like, wow, we know a lot of really good teachers that have come out of that program. So
that being said, we are all right at the beginning of looking for our jobs. So if you know of any school districts that are looking for biology, chemistry teacher, I'm kidding, but yeah, it is stressful, but that career fair went really well. I got some great contacts from that. They really try to set you up for success.
So I am going to cut in here. Boo, party pooper. But we are out of time, and I do want to respect our interns' time because, as you've heard, they've got quite a bit going on. So I want to send my most sincere thanks to our interns for sharing their time today. And I'm going to say it again. You've probably heard me say it a few times, but I'm throwing it out there. If this conversation was helpful for you, remember that next year when you get an email from me asking if you'd like to talk to prospective interns. Thanks so much for coming, everybody. We have one more session for our campus preview days about our trauma-informed practice cert, and it is in a half an hour. I hope to see you there. Don't hesitate to reach out anytime you have questions in the future. Thanks again, everybody. Have a great day.
Go check out that